So zone two today,
Zone two.
is it a waste of time?
It is a waste of time.
It is a waste of time. Okay. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I was actually thinking more and more and more about it. And it's like, is it? It's not a waste of time, right?
No, it just depends,
Just
right?
way overused, I think, is the big thing.
Yeah. It's hyped, right? It's just, it's like a thing that's hyped up right now. Maybe on the tail end of it, it's probably been like 2 years
Yeah. I was going to
already
say
of
a couple years.
hype, right? So it's probably kind of on its way out, I would imagine, but you know,
Yeah.
it's like a fad to some extent. It's like not new, right? Like no exercise scientist is like, whoa, right? Zone two. It's like the lay public that's never heard of it.
Yeah. And
So,
it's definitely for CrossFitters, it's different.
mhm.
It's
Yeah.
totally different in a sense that like when elite endurance athletes do zone two, they're at like 80%, sometimes 85% VO2 max. And they're actually moving at a fast pace. Whereas when CrossFitters do zone two, that hardware is so poorly developed that they're like, you know, you use the talk test because that's like a really good kind of analog, I guess, for lactate testing for your LT1, which is the boundary of zone two, if you want to think about it in that way. And like when I did talk test on a Concept 2 biker,
Mhm.
and my LT1 is between 125 and 150 watts.
Oh, geez.
And
That's a little,
but then elite cyclists, their LT1 is like 300 to 330 watts, right? Which would probably be equivalent to like a 12-minute time trial for me. I think that's what I scored on my 12-minute time trial. I'd have to look. It might be in a different drive, but I think I got around 330 watts for a 12-minute time trial. And that's their zone two pace. So they can hold that for like 3 to 4 hours.
yeah.
They're two. And it's not, it's like, well, obviously they're way fitter. They're professional cyclists, but they're just so much more developed with the way that they can use lactate as fuel. So it's kind of like, why are we even bothering doing this? And then when most people are doing zone two, you look at them and they're like sweating really profusely, and you go to talk to them and they can speak like maybe 5 to 10 words. And then they're gasping or they're pausing. And you're just like, this is not zone two, which then it kind of leads into like, well, then why are you doing it in the first place? All you're doing is hard work, but you can handle it. So why not just do the hard work and just not call it zone two?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you call it what you want. You're just doing cardio training, right? How easy is it? Well, it's in that case, not zone two, but it's still probably like mostly aerobic, right? They're not sprinting, doing intervals. They're doing a steady state cardio. So still overlapping, right? But not easy enough maybe to be the right thing, and maybe also not hard enough to be the right thing. So that's that kind of polarized model, right? It's like, maybe we don't want to do a ton of that medium stuff. We want to do like for endurance athletes, it's like, yeah, they want to do a ton of low intensity and then quite a bit of super high intensity and not a ton in the middle. And maybe for CrossFit, it's like not a ton of the low stuff, not a ton of the middle stuff either, and quite a bit of the high intensity, right?
Yeah. And it kind of begs the question, like, do you need to slow down to get those specific adaptations? I think what my biggest gripe with zone two is that it's sold as like, you have to be in zone two to get specific zone two adaptations. And the answer to that question is no, you do not. You do zone two because it's easier and then you can do more of it. But if you can do higher intensity work and still do the same amount of it, then you should just do higher intensity work because you'll get all of the same adaptations at an equal or better level and you'll get other adaptations that you don't get by doing easy zone 2 work. Like you'll have much more stress on your heart. So your like cardiac output is going to be much higher and your mitochondria is going to be working harder. So you're going to get VO2 max adaptations, which you wouldn't get necessarily as strongly from doing zone 2 work. But you'll also get all of those other adaptations that get chalked up to what zone 2 work gives you. And the people who are selling it are not really selling zone 2 anyway. So it's kind of like, well, what are we even talking about? You know what I mean? It's such a muddy conversation of you go into this, all these athletes are doing zone 2. I'm posting about it on my Instagram. This is what you need to do to take your training to the next level. You need to do zone 2. I prescribe it to my athletes and I'm not even prescribing zone 2. And none of them are even doing zone 2.
They're in zone 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's probably like biggest issue that I have with zone 2. One, there's nothing unique about it. 2, nobody in CrossFit is even doing it. Maybe some of the events are doing it, but I doubt it.
Yeah. So it's kind of just an endurance sport thing, right? Like that's where a lot of this is coming from, right? Cycling, maybe some running as well. It seems like the popularization of this probably came at least partly from the Peter Attia podcast with Inigo San Milan, right? He's a cycling guy. So they obviously do a lot of it, right? Cyclists.
Yeah.
And it makes sense for them to do a lot of it because that's what they're doing. That's the sport.
Yeah.
Right. So we probably get the same types of adaptations from low and high intensity cardio, right?
Training high gives you low intensity adaptations. Training low does not give you high intensity adaptations.
Right. So they're overlapping, but not 100%.
Yeah. It flows down. It doesn't flow up.
Yeah. Right. That's a good way to put it. Yeah. Do you think that endurance athletes are doing that much, doing like a ton of it just because that's the only way to get the volume in that they need to do?
Yes, because of the stress.
Yeah.
But then you also have to kind of keep in mind that it probably is somewhat stressful for them because some of them are working at 80 to 85% VO2 max. And if you and I were to do a workout at 85% VO2 max, we would be like, holy smokes, this is hard. But really all we're measuring with zone 2 is our ability to, if you measure it that way of, like measuring it through lactate, is our ability to process lactate back into fuel. And so people who have a really well-developed ability to process lactate will perform zone 2 at a high heart rate and percentage of VO2 max. And people who have a poor ability to process lactate will do it at a low heart rate and a low percentage of VO2 max and a low relative intensity. But if you have a really, really dialed ability to process lactate, then it's going to be at a high relative intensity. So it's not even really easy work, right? It's accumulation of work that is tolerable. And it would take us years, if not decades, to get to the point where we could tolerate that amount of work just based on our response to stress and our like durability. So I think that's the main component that you get from zone 2. And in this, just like adding volume upon volume on volume year after year, trying to increase your total training volume. And that's like a really common thing in elite endurance sports, especially when you look at things like Ironman triathlon, where they're going for like, at the very, very elite level, 8 to 9 hours, at the pro level, 9 to 11 hours, and then at the high end, 10 to 12 hours. You need to be able to tolerate that amount of work over that amount of time. And that's the concept of durability, is resistance to fatigue. And the only way to do it, like the best way that it's been measured, is just time in sport. So there were some interesting kind of reviews done where they were like looking at elite Nordic skiers, triathletes, and their RPE towards sessions. And the older they were, the lower their RPE was for a given session. So they would do like baseline testing. What's your wattage at VO2 max, your critical power, whatever FTP they use a lot in cycling. And they would cycle at percentages of those things. So it was at the same relative intensity, and younger athletes rated those sessions harder than older athletes did. And it all came down to training time. So if you accumulate more training, you just get essentially tougher, and you don't perceive the stress to be as stressful.
Yep. Another adaptation.
Exactly. Right. It's like a psychological adaptation that occurs, how you perceive fatigue.
Yeah. Yeah. And more hours gives you more of that, right?
Exactly.
And how many hours can you spend in zone 2 compared to zone 5? More, right?
More.
So
yeah. And whether it's like something, whether it's a physiological adaptation that you're training, or if it's just like, imagine the concept of watching paint dry, right? Or like even boredom in youngsters, right? Attention span. People's attention span is going down. So our tolerance to boredom is getting lower. If we were to train boredom and just spend I'm just going to spend 30 minutes staring at the wall every day. And then every week I'm going to add 5 minutes. My tolerance to boredom would become better. It's no different than cold plunging. Right? People are like, okay, I start off, I spend 30 seconds in the cold. And then the next week, 40 seconds. And before you know it, they can walk into an ice bath and they don't even blink an eye. They can sit there for 5 to 10 minutes and they're fine. It's not like their body is adapting to the cold. They're just becoming more tolerant to it.
Yeah. You get better at stuff when you practice it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a specific adaptation.
Yeah. Multifaceted.
Yeah.
All different systems adapting in different ways, right? So should CrossFitters do zone 2?
I think there are populations of CrossFitters who should do zone 2 or who can benefit from it. Right. So we talk about durability, right? I should start by saying that I don't think that zone 2 should ever replace any high intensity training. Because if you have limited time, we talked about how high intensity training flows down, but low intensity training doesn't flow up. If you have limited time, let's say you work a full-time job, you have a family, and you have 5 1-hour sessions that you can do per week, especially in a sport like CrossFit, sitting on a bike for 60 minutes is about the biggest waste of time you can do.
Mm-hmm.
It could be better by rowing for 60 minutes, but that would be much better if you rowed intervals, if you did like a 4x4.
Mm-hmm.
And then that would be much better if you did a 4x4 plus a little bit of strength work, or like some thrusters and burpees and kettlebell swings and box jumps and wall balls and pull-ups and toast bar. So I don't think that you should ever replace high intensity work with it. Where that starts to break down is not everybody can even do high intensity work. So we talked last time about strength is the glass, and the person who wants to get fitter, but they can't do a push-up. Well, that person can't do burpees. They can't do thrusters. They probably can't do kettlebell swings. What are they going to do to improve their fitness? And the list is very short. Zone 2 is one of the things that lives on that list. So they would probably benefit from doing 3 hours of zone 2 a week. And then just like some light weightlifting. That might be the best program for that person, is, weightlifting in the 5 to 10 rep range for 3 to 5 sets. 2 to 3 times per week, and zone 2, 2 to 3 times per week. But only because you're limited to that prescription. You don't have any other options.
Yeah.
So you're kind of handcuffed. Right? So your question was, should they do it, or who can benefit from it? Some people could. It shouldn't replace high intensity training unless you can't do high intensity training. Right? Now, if you're already training quite a bit, you're doing those, like you're doing 4x4s, or you're doing heavier weightlifting sessions, and you don't have a limited schedule, and want to increase your training load to further stress the organism and improve durability and drive those adaptations that zone 2 is often outed as providing, then yeah, you can add zone 2. As long as it's not replacing your training.
Yeah. It seems like the place to start is like, here's a person. Can they do anything else? If the answer is pretty much no, okay, start them on super low intensity because it's all they can do, right? Like somebody that's never done anything, never done exercise, they probably start with like a walk or like an easy bike ride, and that might even be zone 1, but zone 2, whatever. Okay, so that's that person. And then yeah, like a starting strengths kind of situation, right? Get them a little stronger, get them a little fitter. Okay, now we've got a person that's either fit enough or they're an athlete. They're very fit, right? So now we're just kind of a much bigger group of people. And should they do zone 2? How much time do they have? That's their filter, right? Do they have an excess of time and already doing the other stuff that's going to be more important? And then in that case, yes, okay. Then also they can do some of that. Lower intensity, more volume. Does that sound about right?
I think so. Yeah. Because you don't know how much stress you can add. Right? And eventually you'd want to transition. The goal would be to turn that added volume into more high intensity work. So maybe an example would be like, okay, I'm already doing 5 CrossFit classes per week. I'm feeling pretty banged up, but I want to get to the point where I can start training 5 CrossFit classes per week plus 2 double days. Yeah, if I jump right into 2 double days, probably going to get burnt out or injured. So let's build up to that scenario where we start you off with, you're going to do, in those 2 extra sessions per week, you're just going to do 30 minutes of zone 2. And then we go 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. And then we keep it cyclical because it's low impact. And we start doing maybe like some threshold intervals. We're building you up. So we're increasing your tolerance to work. And then one of those sessions becomes like a gymnastics skill session or a weightlifting skill session. We're working at like 70 to 80% relative intensity. So if I'm weightlifting, I'm doing power snatches at 70 to 80%, overhead squats at 70 to 80%. If I'm doing gymnastics work, maybe it's strict gymnastics work, or I'm doing sets of reps that are 70 to 80% of a maximum. So if I could do 10 kipping pull-ups, I'll do like 6 to 8 and then rest, 6 to 8 and rest. And I'll do that for 3 or 4 sets. And then still keeping a little bit more of that kind of like either zone 2 or threshold work in, or we could even increase it further and start getting into some like above critical power, VO2 max type work. But you're just increasing their tolerance to work and then trying to make that more high intense. That would be, I guess that's kind of like long-term periodization discussion, right? It's like, how do I increase my tolerance to work? Because I know that I need to do more if I want to get better. I'm stuck here at 5 hours. There's all sorts of things we can talk about, like, well, you could just improve your recovery instead, eat better, sleep more, drink more water, reduce your stress. But let's assume that those variables are fixed, or they're already dialed, or they're out of their control or something like that. Then that's a gradual way that you can start increasing tolerance to work. And then you just kind of like rinse and repeat. So now I've got my 2 double day sessions. I get to a point where I can handle all of that. I need to do more work. Well, let's start all over again. Okay. So now you've got 5 sessions plus 2 double days. We're going to add another zone 2 session. And we'll work on 30 minutes, 35 minutes, 40 minutes, 45 minutes, so on, get you to 60 minutes, and then do 30 to 40 minutes of lower intensity, sport specific training, so on and so forth. You can apply that to an annual periodization plan where the goal is off-season build so that you can handle preseason and in-season volumes of training. It can be just like a long-term rinse repeat, just continually adding sessions, building, adding, building, adding, building, adding, building, adding. That would be one way that you could use zone 2 to increase your total training volume, which I think you and I both agree is a really important part of getting better.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So use it as a stepping stone to get more work capacity so that you can add in more of the like more important, more specific stuff later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes total sense. And you ideally would start that process like as far away from competition as possible, right? In the annual outlook, you'd try to have that starting way ahead of time so that you're adapted and you're increased your specific training well before the competition as well. You've transitioned with sufficient time that you can now be training the specific modalities in preparation.
Yeah. That gets harder and harder now with the modern day CrossFit season because it's just a year-long season.
Yeah.
You're in season the whole time, right?
Yeah.
It's like Wadapalooza's on right now, right? It's March 13th. And then quarterfinals is in 2 weeks. And semifinals is 2 weeks after that. And then the games will be in August. And then row will be in the fall. And if you're doing WFB, those will be sprinkled all in throughout the year. 3 stops there. It's just like, you're just competing all year round. So then if you have an athlete like that, becomes maybe zone 2 is something that you use to sustain work. Like, we need to keep this person's output high, but we can't be doing this many toes to bar and ring muscle ups year round because we're just too close to that fatigue threshold that you talked about when we were talking about injuries and occurrence of injuries. It's like the fatigue builds and builds and builds, and then it kind of spills over. And that's when we start to be like, oh, my shoulder's a little bit sore. That's fine. So the next day or 2 days later, it feels better. And then I do another 50 ring muscle ups. Oh, my shoulder's a little bit sore. 2 days, it's better. 100 shoulder overheads. And then all of a sudden, like, oh, my shoulder is really killing. But you could use it as a tool to keep that work capacity high as you wave in and out of these like mini competition blocks you have to prepare for.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. With the competition season being kind of all year, you're just have to look at it, I guess, in just smaller blocks, right? So you maybe if you have a month or a month and a half between competitions, you might have a week or 2 where you're kind of backed off, and then like 2 to 3 weeks where you're ramping up again, right?
Yeah.
So you might right after competition, you might give it a little bit of a break, add some of that low intensity stuff back in just briefly, and then kind of phase it out rather quickly back to competition prep.
Yeah. Because if you're an elite athlete, you're not going to lose those skills.
No.
Right. So if I don't do toes to bar for 2 weeks, I'm not going to forget how to do toes to bar. I'm not going to go from 60 unbroken to 15 unbroken. I'll still have 60 unbroken toes to bar, or some of these, 70, 80 unbroken toes to bar. I'll still be able to do it. You just want to keep them at a high level of work capacity. And it can be an easy tool to keep that work capacity at a high level without banging them up, right? Like we can all agree that sitting on a Concept 2 bike for an hour is way easier than doing up an hour of burpees at any pace.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can, actually recover while doing that, right? So it's still productive training, but you can recover from the competition or even just the peak phase training that just preceded.
Yeah. It's just not as potent a stimulus as higher intensity training.
Yeah.
And that's where I think that's my big issue with zone 2 is, do you need it? You probably don't need it. It's not giving you anything that something else can't give you. It's just a tool in the toolbox.
Yeah. I think, with those studies that we looked at, they're very cool, but you have to go down to such details to find differences or to find a specific benefit to zone 2 potentially. And even then it's not clear. It's not entirely clear that there is specific benefit, right? So yeah, the specific location of the mitochondria within the muscle was different between high intensity and low intensity, but we don't even know if that matters, what that means, right? Probably does matter to some extent, but man, you have to dig pretty deep to find that stuff.
Mhm.
So, and even in those studies, high intensity intervals outperformed low, moderate intensity, all of them. So
Yeah. In terms of
mitochondrial
function.
mitochondrial density.
Yeah.
Which are obviously related.
These of like dull Bulgarian style of weightlifting training, where it was just max out every day. And if you want to be great at CrossFit, you need to be able to handle that, right? Your genetics need to support that. Your movement quality, your genetics, your lifestyle needs to support that ability to max out every day. And if you don't, well, then you were never going to be great. So whatever, right? And that's not to say that you should just give up. That's when you would start to think about like, okay, well, maybe zone 2 is the best that I can do. And this is something that I actually have to take advantage of because I can't max out every day. But to get the optimal benefits of training, higher intensity training, it's going to give you way more bang for your buck.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like there could be an in-between case there too, right? Where it is that stepping stone. Like if you take somebody and you drop them into the Bulgarian system, most of them are going to die, basically.
Yeah.
The ones that survive are going to be on the national weightlifting team. And there's no real in between there. But, in this case, like you could still have those people that got dropped into maxing out every day and survived. It's like, okay, cool. They're probably going to be pretty good, whatever. But you could have this person that has a more intelligent approach, right? They may or may not be able to survive. We don't know yet. They're going to take some time to transition to kind of build up to it. And then they'll see later on whether or not they can handle it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The long-term development plan. Right. Instead of, like you say, just dropping in.
Yeah.
Did you read that study that they did with, I think it was cyclists, where they had them do, I think it was 40-minute time trial? Every week for 6 weeks or something like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or
It was
10K time trial.
Yeah.
Their VO2 max went up by like 60%, something insane. But none of them continued exercise after the study was over. They were all just completely crushed from the volume and intensity of the study criteria. And that's an example of, right? Like, yeah, it works, but it's not sustainable.
Yeah, that was nuts. It was like 6 days a week of like hard intervals. And I think there was only like one dropout.
Yeah.
I think a lot of them stayed in it, but then afterwards they like couldn't do it again. So
They
couldn't do
couldn't
it anymore.
not even
Yeah.
close. Yeah. The effects were massive, but that added such huge costs.
Yeah, big gains. Day one was a 40-minute, you're right. It was a 40-minute time trial. Maybe I'm getting two studies mixed up. The one I'm thinking of was, I think one day was a 40-minute time trial. And then it was 6 sets of 5 minutes, I think, on the alternate day, and back and forth like that for 12 weeks straight.
All weeks.
Something like that. But I might be mixing two studies in my memory.
I want to see if ChatGPT can find it for me. Oh, here's one from 1977. Subjects trained 40 minutes a day, 6 days a week for 10 weeks.
Yeah, that's what we did.
3 days a week, they did 6 5-minute cycling intervals at a workload that elicited VO2 max with 2-minute recovery. 44% increase in VO2 max for weeks.
Holy.
17 milliliters per kilo per minute.
Oh,
Imagine just pumping your VO2 max out by 17.
in less than 3 months.
Yeah.
Oh. You wouldn't be able to do much else on those days, though. Oh, man.
No, you'd be pretty well. 40 minutes per day.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you were like kind of already used to it, but
Yeah.
I mean, if you're really,
I don't have the full thing in front of me, but it'd be interesting to see where they started.
I like what you have here for programming zone 2 differently. This is really great. Do you want to go through that?
Yeah. So when we think about it like this durability concept, right? So running, what do we get from running in zone 2? We get more running strides. So we're actually creating some specific adaptations. You and I talked about it, I think in our first podcast or maybe in the second one, where it was like, when you squat, you will structurally adapt to that squat. You'll improve your motor coordination within it. And then your bones will get stiffer, harder, more dense. Your tendons will get thicker and stiffer. Your fascia will change. Your muscle, like the pennation angle of your muscles will change. The bulk of them will change. We even got into like ligament and capsule and how that could potentially adapt to movement. So when you're running, you're going to get specific structural adaptations to running. If you're doing CrossFit, what you want to do is get specific adaptations to the movements we do with CrossFit, right? Like, I would say if I could break CrossFit down into 3 movements, it would be a squatting pattern, a bending pattern, and an arms overhead pattern, like an aggressive shoulder flexion. And that would kind of handle like snatches, clean and jerks, any kipping movement, any handstand movement, any deadlift, toes to bar, burpee, GHD setup, rope climb movement. But almost everything is going to fit inside those 3 patterns with CrossFit: squatting, bending, and dynamic shoulder flexion. So you can think about what's happening structurally when we do zone 2 running. We're getting more running strides, and we're creating structural changes specific to the running stride. We can take that concept and apply it to CrossFit, where we would do like easy work. So maybe we do like circuits, 20 to 30 minutes long, of gymnastics fundamentals, hollow rocks, deep swings, handstand holds against the wall. It has to be quality work to get like the most out of it, I think, right? Like you can't just like arch back, lean against the wall for your handstand hold. You want a good handstand hold, and the body will start to adapt to that. You'll improve economy as a result. You'll improve tolerance. Even silly things like the more you hang from a bar, the tougher your hands are going to get and the less likely they're going to be to rep. Simple things like that. That is how I would program my zone 2 work more specifically with that peace in mind, is to try and use it to create some structural adaptation. So it's not necessarily zone 2 from the perspective of measured by lactating. It's easy work that serves the purpose of improving these structural adaptations. We also talked a little bit about the motor control aspect of squatting. So the more I squat, the better I get at squatting, right? First, from 0 to 6 months, I can set a PR in the squat every single week. I'm probably not getting that much stronger. I'm probably not building that much muscle. I'm getting way better at the movement. So if I'm consciously practicing movements on a regular basis, just in a fundamental perspective, then I'll get better at them. They'll be more economical and they'll cost me less when I'm performing them because I'm more familiar with them. So I think that's like a good way to program zone 2, but it's just easy work.
Yeah, you're just shifting, you're taking that either just sitting on a bike or going for a slow run and either shifting all of that time and effort or just some of it, depending on the athlete, into just doing the movements that maybe need more work at a low intensity. So you're getting more reps, you're improving your skills instead of doing an easy bike ride when that might not be the best bang for your buck. So it's like, yeah, just where are the priorities, right? It's still easy work, but you're getting better at stuff that you have to do more of. So it's probably a better idea.
Yeah. And you're still breathing. You're still like consuming fuel and turning calories into ATP. It's just not so steady. You use the word priorities. And I think that's the real key is like when you talk about these things like zone 2, is you always need to ask the question of why. Right? We were talking a little bit more about diet in one of our past episodes where it was like, somebody was like, should I start eating oats or should I cut oats out of my diet? And I'm like, why? So why do you want to do zone 2? Okay. Well, we look at our CrossFit athlete as this like 3-dimensional object, right? And there's like spikes and there's dips and this is their athlete profile. And if they have really poor movement quality, is doing zone 2 going to make them better at CrossFit? Probably not. It's going to make them a little bit fitter, but they're still going to suck at CrossFit. They're still like, they still can't push their knee even 1 inch past their toes. They still can't flex their shoulder to 180 degrees. So is it the best use of time to be performing zone 2 with that athlete? Probably not. I would say a way better use of time would be doing an hour of focused mobility work. So if you want to add, so we've got we'll go back to our athlete avatar, 5 classes per week, and they want to get better at CrossFit. You know, an untrained coach might say, oh, we, just do 2 zone 2 sessions per week, 1 hour each, and that'll make you fitter. And then you'll be better. And they do that for 6, 8, 12 weeks, and they still suck at CrossFit because their mobility is garbage, right? But somebody who has more of a keen eye looks at them and it's like, dude, your movement quality is garbage, right? Like you barely squat below parallel. So I think what you should do if you want to get better is 30 minutes of mobility every night before bed. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Like you just need to move your body. It can be easy work, but you need to move it through a 4-inch mode. Or it can be more aggressive. You can get into whatever, lacrosse balls, foam rollers, ability sticks. I don't know how you feel about that stuff. I'm kind of like perched on top of the fence, but that's going to make this person way better at CrossFit than any amount of zone 2 ever is. Or you start diving into things like, well, where are your weaknesses? Okay. Well, I've got 50 unbroken chest to bars and 12 unbroken ring muscle ups. And I can do 4 body weight strict ring dips. Well, maybe instead of zone 2, you would benefit from a little bit more upper body pressing through that dip pattern. Right? And then some gymnastics fundamentals. that's probably the best use of that extra time that you have. So the question of why needs to be asked long before the discussion around what it is, what does it do, who is it for, ever gets broached. We just need to know why. What is your goal? I want to be better at CrossFit. Okay, well, what's the lowest hanging fruit?
Yeah, definitely not a bunch of slow bike riding. Um, definitely not top of the list.
Yeah, the most non-specific task that you can think of.
Yeah, it always comes back to like a needs analysis, right? What should we do? Well, what do they need to work on, right? It's like if they're really, really unfit and they're super strong and their skills are great, then yeah, well, sounds like a good candidate for zone 2, but how many of those are there?
Yeah.
Probably not. Like an elite Olympic weightlifter came into CrossFit, or like they were, a high level weightlifter and a gymnast. So
Yeah.
they're good at everything and they're really strong, but they might not be able to run a 5K at all. Then maybe
Yeah.
so they'll do.
Yeah.
Or
They
even
need
just
to
people.
develop
Yeah,
some oxidative capacity.
exactly. Yeah.
And that's all they need to do. Right. Even if you were an elite level weightlifter, you would probably be able to crank out like 10 unbroken ring muscle ups.
Probably strict.
Yeah. You follow those guys. There's a guy in Ontario, Ibanez weightlifting. He's got a son and a daughter who both weigh them. She's like, I want to say 12, does like a
Oh,
120 clean and jerk, 125 clean and jerk.
yeah. I think I've seen that
And his
girl.
son is like between 16 and 18. Emily Ibanez and this, I can't remember the son's name. And he does like 140, 170 as like around 75 kilos body weight, 80 kilos body weight. And every now and I think they own a CrossFit gym or they train out of a CrossFit gym. He'll get the kids up on rings or to do bar muscle. So they'll just do a CrossFit workout and they make it look so easy.
So much power.
Oh yeah. And body control and just the whole package, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like to take somebody like that, like Matt Fraser, right? Matt Fraser probably got to where he was in CrossFit by doing just disgusting levels of rowing intervals in his basement because he was so good at everything else. And then there was like, he got to the games and it was like, oh, it turns out my grip is an issue. Who knew? Right. And then he went and he held a 150-pound deep ball for 5 minutes a day, came back and won. But like, that's what he needed he needed to bring his fitness up. And he didn't do zone 2. He probably did 30 on 30 offs or something similar to that, something quite high intensity. And he just cranked on it. And he got crazy fit.
Yeah. And, most people wouldn't have been able to handle that. And that's kind of the filter to that level, right? Is like, can you even handle the training? If not, you're just not going to get there. So then you might, if you tried and couldn't handle it, then you might back off and introduce more easier stuff to just keep working or try to keep progressing. Or you might not even try that approach, having the kind of inkling that you won't be able to make it, and you start with some easy stuff and maybe build it over time.
Yeah. It's certainly not to take away from zone 2 because you can drive adaptations with it.
Yeah.
Just not the best.
Yeah.
And it's not the panacea that people sell it as. You're not where you want to be in CrossFit because you're not doing zone 2. It's just so untrue.
Yeah. That's the perfect way to put it. It's like, that is never the case.
Yeah. Yeah. It is never the case.
Yeah. That's a great way to sum it up, actually. One really good use for some easy work, especially just, easy monostructural, is that I use is for just when people are injured and they're like not going to be able to handle either the stress in general of higher intensity work or the specific load on the injured tissue, right? And then all they can do is low load, low intensity training. So zone 2 is actually super, super helpful, like during recovery and rehab. Like for me, when I was early on, I was riding the bike with my boot on, my robo boot, and I just wasn't like ready to put much force through my ankle. So I was doing easy rides.
Yeah. You can look at that from multiple angles too, right? Like you get an injury like yours, which is at least in the short term, life-changing. And one of the things that you would want for that individual is to get them back into the gym, back integrating with their community, feeling like they're still part of things as quickly as possible. More from like an emotional standpoint than anything. But then the point that you make about like, they're just not ready for it, whether it's the specific tissue or the general system stress. And when you work out hard, you put a demand on recovery resources. And when you have an injury, there's already a very high demand on those recovery resources. So one of the most important things when people do have like significant injuries like that is energy balance, right? Like you need to make sure that you're eating the right amount of calories and the right amount of macronutrients. And if you're going to go and take all those calories and macronutrients and burn them on high intensity interval training, then expect your injury to heal much more slowly because it's not getting the resources that it needs.
Yeah.
So yeah, those kind of two angles. And then the one that the part that you pointed out of like specific tissue load is I can only do easy work this limb. So
yeah, it can't tolerate high forces yet. So low forces it is.
yeah.
Yeah. It, even, going back to the energy balance part, even in the context of energy balance, this is kind of theoretical, even if you had proper energy balance or even a surplus, if you did very, very stressful training, you're creating at the very least a hormonal milieu that might not be conducive to recovery, right? Even if there's enough calories, you're creating this stress response that's going to potentially interfere with anabolic, anti-inflammatory processing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little bit kind of more hypothetical, more small scale, but still, I think probably an important consideration.
I think it's absolutely an important consideration, even whether it exists or not. I always think of like what's going on in my body, like almost like a police force or like a municipal government, right? And it's just my body's just constantly putting out fires and trying to allocate resources and budget and staff, and things are going all over the place. And when you roll in with the Winter Olympics, it's just like, wow. Right? So maybe if you want to kind of like, balance the budget a little bit or like focus on this infrastructure project that you've got going on, you can't be hosting a whole bunch of other things at the same time. You need to allocate resources appropriately. And if the goal is to stay engaged with training while prioritizing recovery, zone 2 would be a really good way to do that.
Yeah. And the other point you made was perfect too. Like just getting back into the gym was definitely helpful. Like sitting at home would not have been good.
No.
Maybe for some people it would be, but I think probably for most people that are doing CrossFit, getting back in the gym, doing a little bit of easy work will be much better for their mindset than sitting around. So yeah, I took one day off and then I did the ski erg and I can't even remember what else I did, but yeah, like 48 hours post injury, I was back in there just doing a little bit of easy stuff.
Easy stuff. right? Call it zone 2 if you want, but the key is that it's easy.
Yeah.
Anything else on kind of like the broader spectrum of zone 2?
Oh, yeah, forgot to bring this up. When we were talking about like just doing more gymnastics, doing more squats, for example, but easy, right? Just getting more easy work of specific movements that need work, that need focus. You could also just mix in a little bit of easy monostructural with those things, right? So if you're doing EMOM, you could be working at a low average intensity, doing, some good skills practice, and then having a little bit of a aerobic stimulus in one of the minutes to keep the heart rate up and get those, basic physiological adaptations at the same time as your skills, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's kind of like it's maximizing the time that you're spending doing zone 2. You're not going to do as much zone 2. So the adaptations that you're chasing that are specific to zone 2, you won't get as much because the stimulus isn't the same. But you're probably more efficient with your time by doing that. Yeah. It assumes that it again, needs analysis, right? What do you need the most of? Well, I'm not very fit and I don't move very well. Okay, well, let's do both of those things. Okay, well, I move quite well, but I'm still not very fit. Well, let's do more zone 2. What should we do? Should we do it on the bike? Maybe, but I don't know, like my best 500-meter row is 132 and I'm a 215-pound, 6'3" male. Let's do it on the rower, right? And my best deadlift is 600 pounds.
Yeah.
We're obviously not doing any deadlifting training in your workout or your program. So let's do some rowing. And in 6 weeks, you'll probably pull a 119. So yeah, it always comes back to that big question of why? Why would I do this at all, if at all?
Yeah, 100%. When I sent you that study with the mitochondrial density and location and morphology, did you think I was bringing on board was loss of zone 2? I thought I might have had
No, I know where you stand on it. But I thought maybe you were like, oh, actually, it does do something unique.
Oh, we got to do a lot. Yeah.
There's no way. I never would have guessed that there's something specific. Should we bust some myths then?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, what are the things that you most commonly hear referenced that zone 2 does for you?
Oh, man. Well, the ones that I hear are not necessarily false, but they just are more easily attained with higher intensity, right? It's like increasing your VO2 max. It's like, yeah, you can do that more quickly if you just do higher intensity work.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, like if people say like it's the best way to improve either VO2 max or, lactate clearance, things like that. It's like, well, probably not the best way.
Yeah. That study that they did in 1977, it clearly debunks that. The one that probably grinds my gears the absolute most is the left ventricle preload. So the idea is that when you are doing high intensity exercise, your heart is beating too quickly for the left ventricle to fully expand before it contracts again. And low intensity work, because the heart is beating more slowly, allows that left ventricle to expand more, which causes greater eccentric hypertrophy. So your left ventricle will grow, and then you'll get a greater cardiac output from doing low intensity work. And I'm just like,
I
Maybe
haven't.
makes sense.
I'd never heard
No,
that.
oh, um, so the kind of like the bulk of that argument is that left ventricle preload is driven primarily by an increase in plasma volume. As you do more exercise, you create more blood, and so your heart fills more. And any intensity of exercise is going to cause you to produce more blood and cause your heart to expand more. So that's probably the one that grinds me the most. And then the other one are like the cardiovascular adaptations like angiogenesis, right? Capillarization, mitochondrial function. We talked a little bit about that. It's like high intensity work is better. Yeah, it does. Zone 2 does improve the function of your mitochondria, but high intensity work is better. The angiogenesis is another one that like really grinds on me. Because people just throw these like, I feel like in this day and age, you can get away with just about anything if you lead with research shows that. Research shows that this occurs, right? Joel Seedman is a perfect example. And people like NFL football players, people making tens of millions of dollars a year buy into the stuff. Research shows that 90 degrees is optimal. And you're like, no, wait. So the cardiovascular adaptations, the angiogenesis specifically, the big driver there is just sheer stress on the vasculature. Like the more force that those blood vessels, arteries, arterioles, capillaries feel, the more likely they are to proliferate. It's that simple. So as your heart beats harder and they feel that blood pressure increases as it goes downstream, they feel a stretch, they're going to proliferate. There's nothing unique to zone 2 about that. It happens with exercise. Yeah. Those are the two for me that I just can't stand when I hear.
Yeah, I think probably people think it's better for increasing your maximum ability to oxidize fat. And I think that might be just an artifact of more volume.
Oh, yeah.
So like maybe that's true, but only because they're doing a ton of it and not as much higher intensity work, right? So in those studies that we shared earlier, when they match the work, they match the total work between the two conditions, then the high intensity comes out on top.
Yeah. Yeah. In that, on that note too, I think one of the misleading factors is like percentage of energy contribution, where when you're working at a lower intensity, you're not relying as much on carbohydrate as an energy source. So maybe in zone 2, you're like 80% fat oxidation, 20% carbohydrate oxidation. And then as intensity increases, you're still using the exact same amount of fat, but you're using more carbohydrate. So you're taking per hour of exercise, you're using 200 calories from fat and 100 calories from carbohydrate. And then intensity increases, the 200 calories from fat stays the same. Keep using those 200 calories from fat, 200 calories from carbohydrate, 300 calories from carbohydrate, 400 calories from carbohydrate. So it's not that fat oxidation decreases. It's just that its percent contribution to energy production goes down. It's no different than sometimes people will come to me and they're like, oh, I want to improve my body composition. Like, well, you know what the easiest way to improve your body composition is? Build more muscle. And you don't even have to lose fat. If you're 180 pounds and you stay 180 pounds, but you add 5 pounds of muscle, or even if you gain just 5 pounds of muscle and you go up to 185 pounds, that 5 pounds displaces the fat mass that you have, and your body fat percentage will go down, and you add more muscle, more muscle, more muscle. You don't have to lose a single ounce of fat. You just keep building muscle. Your body fat percentage is going down because the muscle mass is displacing body fat as a percentage of contribution. But I think that's a really misleading piece of low intensity or zone 2 work, is percent contribution to energy production from fat. Because that percent or that amount is fixed. It's just percent contribution that goes down.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's that classic fat burning zone, right? Which is, as a relative percentage is true, right? When you're purely aerobic, you can use a lot of fat. And then when you increase the demand, there's not enough time to get the energy out of fat. So you have to shift more and more anaerobic and metabolize glucose, right?
Yeah.
First aerobically and then anaerobically. But yeah, I think Inigo might have claimed that fat oxidation goes down. Might have to go back and look at that.
Fat oxidation goes down
Past zone 2.
I don't
like, not just as a relative. Maybe I misunderstood that as an absolute. Not sure. But either way, even if it does, it's still, you still have to first consider like what the outcome is, right? Not the underlying specific metabolic pathway. It's like, do you prioritize fat oxidation for a fat oxidation's sake, or do you do the thing that's going to make the performance better?
Right. And the only time I think that becomes a relevant conversation topic is in something like Ironman ultra running, where you're going for longer than a period of time where you can store that much carbohydrate as an energy substrate, right? Or you just can't consume. But there was that guy, that cyclist, who was consuming like 1,000 grams of carbohydrate per day and using it all. Did you see that study?
Per day or per?
No, they had kind of set the upper limit at like around 600 to 800 grams per day. It was like, you physically cannot use this much carbohydrate in a day. And a triathlete or cyclist, it's like, oh yeah, like here. And they did like the marked isotope and like 1,000 grams of carbohydrate a day, and he was using it all.
Yeah, I think he was like near 200 per hour, wasn't he?
It was an outrageous number. I don't know.
Yeah, like
crazy.
We went from what, like 30 to 60 grams per hour of carbohydrate in probably like 80s, 90s. And then it was like, okay, 60 to 90, but definitely no more than 90. And then guys like that are like, no, I think more is better. And maybe, there's still going to be some limit, but the limit is probably how much can you eat, not how much can you use.
How much can your gut tolerate?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Like the gastric distress of eating 200 grams of carbohydrate per hour.
Yeah.
Be insane. And another interesting thing was dental health. Those guys, their teeth are just like falling out because there's just mainlining sugar.
Oh man. Yeah, it's a lot. And it gets pretty gross. When I was doing endurance training, I was like, eating a fair amount, not crazy like that, but when everything is sweet and you're doing, 80, 100 grams of carbs per hour, it's disgusting.
Oh yeah.
Like gels and Gatorade and, because you can't, like, if you're actually going fairly hard, you can't really put down solid food. So you can't can't eat rice and pasta. First of all, because you can't really like take it with you, but also just because it's like hard to eat actual food when you're breathing hard.
Yeah. Even gels are tough sometimes. They're kind of sticky. Like you need water to go along with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lactate.
Yeah.
That,
Lactate shuttle.
that's another one that gets thrown up a lot. It's like your ability to utilize lactate as if you were to clear it. Zone 2 improves your ability to clear it because you're below the lactate threshold, right? So you're like, you're clearing it much better. But I think that one is just, again, not really a topic that it has any truth or holds any water, because the rate of clearance and the rate of production are tied. Right? As exercising intensity increases, then you start producing more. You can clear it at the same rate. Zone 2 is not going to make you any better at clearing it because you're not utilizing it or because you're not producing as much. But you just produce more and then you're not clearing it as well. So that's going to improve with all types of training. I would even, again, not like this is kind of anecdotal, but I would guess that lactate utilization and the lactate shuttle improves with higher intensity exercise over lower intensity exercise, because the systemic use of lactate is going to be better, right? Like the inter muscle fiber use, and then the blood transport shuttle is going to improve because the demand to create energy is so high. So,
And the production of lactate is higher.
Yeah. So you're going to train your body to use it better.
Yeah. I mean, that would make the most sense just from first principles, right? You're creating more of that same stress. Your body would tend to respond with the adaptation that would handle that particular stress better. In this case, transporting and utilizing lactate. So yeah, I don't know where that one comes from. Again, maybe it's just a volume thing, right? Like maybe they're not equating volume and they're like, yeah, like 5 hours of zone 2 is better for lactate clearance and metabolism adaptations than 10 minutes of high intensity intervals or something like that.
Even simpler than that, in that they see that lactate is not accumulating and they're like, oh, it's because you're using it as fuel. And then when you train harder, you're not using it as fuel. And you're like, no, I'm still using it all.
Yeah.
Just making more than I'm using.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Like I'm probably using more, but I'm making so much of it that I can't use it all. So it's accumulating.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like a limit, right? And you can change that limit. You change your thresholds, when your fitness improves, but you'll still start accumulating at some point. It's unavoidable.
Yeah. Yeah. Eventually, as power increases or as intensity increases.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts?
I think your kind of approach to just kind of shifting the zone 2 into just, an easy work concept. And then you can have more things to work on that are easy. And maybe you do zone 2 on a bike, or maybe you do an easy run, but maybe you also just do the things that you need to practice a lot at a low intensity to get better.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
That's my kind of like core belief around zone 2, is that there's nothing unique about zone 2. So let's just call it easy work. Let's look at it from a stress perspective, and we will give you as much as you can tolerate, and only that much, and never try to go beyond that. And it's going to be specific to your needs. If it's movement, if it's mobility, if it's, energy systems trading or durability or whatever it is, we're going to use the work to try and create a specific adaptation and not just blindly adopt, some fad that's been floating around social media because somebody with 40,000 followers said that it was what was holding me back from being elite.
Specificity is king. That was solid.
That covered a lot.
Yeah.
Can I get a bounce?
Okay.
That was good. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Good luck tonight. Let me know how it goes.
Thanks. See what we'll do. See ya.
See ya.